Wendy. I thought today we can chat about eclectic homeschooling. So I thought just to start off, I'll explain how I understand that term, because possibly people have different ideas. But for me, I think of it as picking and mixing different curriculum products to make our own tailor-made, customized package of learning materials that I chose, or in my case, that suited my family. And in the beginning, we tried a couple of different options, and eventually we sort of settled on a mixture of products that we used. Well, I used them over and over with different children at different stages. And I think your family did something similar, but just tell us how it looked for you.
Well, we started off with, right in the beginning, like most homeschoolers, with a package deal. And then you find that something doesn't sit quite right, or, a little long in the tooth, or, you're certain that there is something more entertaining or a different way to teach your child that particular subject. So you then go on your hunt, and you look for things, and you ask questions, and you look in other people's homes and see what they've got. And stuff just starts to gel. So you would perhaps add in, well, like we did, we added in a different science program. So we ditched the science program that came in the package, we added in a different science program. Then I didn't really like that language style, so we found another language program. And then each child who had an individual interest as well, we would find additional things to go along. My one horse crazy child, we found a lot of we call them lap books, a lot of projects for her to do on that. And then the other one who was really, really sciencey, we would go and add on additional science activities. And that then becomes your sort of eclectic mix. It's like a bag of jelly beans. You don't, you know which ones you like in it, and kind of sort those ones out and enjoy it that way.
Yeah, in our home, it was pretty much the same. After a couple of years, I had settled on a maths program that I found worked for all my children, actually. Science, we also used one or two, and then found something that we used over and over. And there were also different seasons where sometimes we added on a lot of extras, like we did an art appreciation program for a season. My one son did an electronics program for a season, and now my younger son is actually doing that as well. But the middle son had no interest in that. I've got a girl who's arty, so she also did a little bit more arty programs than the others. And so, we gave each child what we felt suited their needs in that particular season. And I started off very much with a kind of a school at home idea in my head, even though I didn't buy an expensive package that gave me a textbook for every subject. But when I started, I was very legalistic and religious about doing every page and every book. And after a year or two, I kind of felt burnt out. Mm-hmm. And then I just wanted something that would be more enjoyable, less pressure, something we could go more or less at our own pace. And I liked the idea of reading stories to my child, the one who was, of school-going age, rather than textbooks. And that's how I got into literature-based learning. And then, as you know, that's when you and I connected. Yeah. And we decided to write our own South African literature-based program, because we started out reading American stories, and they were about Thanksgiving and very patriotic American stuff, baseball and all the American culture. And I realized I wanted my kids to also learn about South African culture. And so that's how our Footprints program was born.
Yeah.
So, if you don't find a program that suits you, then you get one that's homegrown.
You write your own.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I was just thinking, one of the things that, one of the benefits of having an eclectic way of doing home education is that there is nowhere in this world that you have got two exactly the same type of kid or family. Everybody has their own little nuances, their own interests. And if we say that what we are getting from a school isn't good enough, why would we then bring our child home and do exactly the same thing there? Give them this one size fits all, which is exactly why you and I ended up with Footprints, is because we realized that even the American, which was very good, I mean, you can't fault it, but it wasn't particular to the needs of South African homeschoolers. And we went into that with wanting to also impart into our children's lives a love for their country and a desire to make a difference. And how do you do that unless you fall in love with it, your mountain and your sea and your fauna and your flora? So that was a lovely offshoot in what was our own eclectic walk. But in terms of the benefits of eclectic homeschooling is really that ability to tailor make and help your children to understand what makes them tick. Again, going back to Charlotte Mason, education is a science of relations. And that means that when our children make a deep connection with something, that thing could carry them through life. And like we've said in other videos before, we've had children who through Footprints fell in love with birds of prey and still to this day work in that field. We had another child who fell in love with knots and sailing in the sea, and that became his career, sailing yachts from port to port. So we need to open ourselves up to a different way of doing, a better way of doing homeschooling. And we can, there is such a wealth of product out there. There is no reason why we need to stay within the confines of what somebody else says is best for your child.
I think many homeschoolers in the beginning, because there are packaged curriculums, that gives them the security to get started. But within a short time, they realize that this isn't the dream that they had in mind. And then they start feeling, well, there must be a better way to do homeschooling, and there must be other products. And that's when you start this learning curve of trying different things for a couple of years until you find what really suits you and your children best. And that trial and error doesn't harm anybody, because children need to learn. You shop around, you do your research, you try something, and you learn from what works and what doesn't. And that's how life goes. And most of the products out there, they accomplish the job that they were created to accomplish. So you're not giving your children an inferior education if you use them. But eventually, like you said, you discover what's lacking in something, and then you find what really suits you.
Correct. So just in terms of if a parent chose a program like Footprints covers your core subjects. Your Footprints covers your core subjects, and which is your Bible study, obviously your South African history, geography. We've got natural science inside there. And we have some language assignments, and onto that, so we're showing a picture of what eclectic homeschooling looks like. So you could replace Footprints with anything. You could put one of the other competition names in there, but into that you would then choose a maths program that helps you as a parent teach on the level that you are comfortable and the way that your children receive that information. So we chose a strong, and I want to say remedial program, because I struggle with maths and I didn't want to pass that on to my children. So we chose a program that was really gave me a really strong foundation from which to teach. You chose a different maths program, and there was no difference in the standard. It's just it better suited your family, right? And then you're adding on a language. We don't need to do Afrikaans. You've got 11 different languages to choose from in our country alone. And at this time in South African homeschooling, we're finding that there is a draw from all culture groups. Years ago, when you and I started, it was generally a white thing that was happening, and now we have families from across the racial spectrum using homeschooling, and they can do their own home language, their mother tongue, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, there's a great amount of diversity in the homeschool movement, and people just adapt the Footprints program to suit their needs, to suit their language, to suit their religion, to suit their culture. And because it is South African, everybody can identify with something in the program. And just to answer a question that's quite often asked of us is, how do we handle bias? And while we have carefully selected books that we feel are a fair representation of history, we've also tried to select more than one story about different aspects. So where there was a war, we have a story from, let's say, the British point of view, and a perspective from an Afrikaner point of view, if you're talking about the Anglo-Boer War. And we actually had one from a Baralong boy's point of view as well. So we like to show people that there are two sides or more to every story, and the lesson is to read widely and to draw your own conclusions. So you need to recognize when somebody has an agenda or a perspective that you think isn't accurate or that differs from your own. And we try to teach children that discernment. And I think we've been quite successful, because we've never really had anybody from any race or, cultural group complain to us about that. So, we didn't write our own views in. In fact, we said openly, we are two white women, and so we may have a perspective that's different to yours. And your role is to read between the lines and let your children think about other people's perspectives and experiences and backgrounds. So I think that's a very valuable lesson in any history program.
Yeah, and it's even feeds into the eclectic topic that we're talking about. The same way that we have the ability to look at something and say, no, not that for my family, and go on a hunt for something else. There is, when you get yourself a boxed curriculum, and you are now restricted in terms of how many pages you need to do every day, how many assignments you have to send in, what tests need to be done, what exams need to be done. There is very little freedom for just sitting around and talking about an issue that comes up in a book, or talking about your perspective of what it was like, for example, to grow up in the 70s.
Or further reading on that topic.
And we often talk about having these rabbit trails in our homeschooling journeys. Some of those rabbit trails are the most delightful and most enriching studies in teaching our children how to think. I often say to parents, it's not so much about whether you're doing footprints or whether you're doing sunlight or whether you're doing one of the other names. The fact is that how are you teaching your children to access information, how to think about that information, in other words, assimilate it, and how to then give it back. That is your goal in learning. So any tool that you can find that does that should be part of your eclectic mix in your homeschool.
Absolutely. There isn't just one way to learn, and there is no best curriculum, but we do think that there are better ways to do things than what the mainstream offers, and parents need to explore that adventure and try and put together what suits them.
Absolutely.
Create a customized program for their own families.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on that up note, let's say goodbye and have a lovely rest of the day.
Cheers. Till next time.
Bye.